18 years old, bro. And so I went to prison the first time for multiple robberies, trying to get some money to help my daughter.
Sure.
And got out and went back running and gunning. I tried to pimp for a little bit. I did that. I robbed, I scammed, I did it. I did a little bit of everything, bro. And what eventually led to the case that had me fighting a life sentence was I had acquired all these guns. You know, I had a bunch of guns, was hitting licks, getting guns, getting money, you know, and I got so deep in this cycle of nothingness at this point. I quit my job to start hitting licks all the time.
Right.
And I got so deep in this cycle of nothingness, I wasn't able to see.
Welcome back to the Untapped Potential Podcast, where we interview local visionaries from the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're tapping in with DeVonte Parson. He's the executive director of Prose Potential, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering youth of color.
DeVonte served a 5.5-year prison sentence that changed his outlook on life and motivated him to use his story to help others.
In this episode, we talk about growing up in the Seattle Central District, serving time in prison, and how he used his experience to publish his first book, Prose, The Art of Becoming More. Untapped Potential Podcast, man. Today, we're tapping in with a very special guest. We got DeVonte Parson in the building. What's going on, DeVonte? How are you doing?
Good. What it do, man? I'm feeling great, blessed, powerful. You feel me? Feeling powerful. How about y'all?
Let's go,
Feeling
man.
great too, man.
Feeling
Thank
good,
you for joining us.
Come on.
It's a nice Sunday. We were just talking about before we hit the record button. You just came from Ocean Shores.
Yes.
What's the vibe out there like?
Man, it was beautiful, man, because it was fun being around a small town, being in a small town, getting away from like the city and everything, and just enjoying the time. It sucked because it was like raining, you know, and it wasn't like much sun out there. But it was dope though. It was dope. I liked it.
That's cool. Yeah. And so did you grow up in the Puget Sound area?
Yes, I grew up in the Central District I grew up in Yester Terrace Projects and eventually went over into the Central District, Seattle.
Gotcha. What was that like growing up in the CD?
Well, man, it was tough, bro. One thing I would say about like growing up in the projects or in the neighborhood that I grew up in is it was a big sense of community. So like I was able to walk around and maneuver without being scared of being snatched up or something or anything. Because you had, even though the guys there might have been like selling dope or doing whatever, there was love there, and like the kids were loved on. You know what I mean? And but it was violent, man. It was a lot of violence. Seen a lot of stuff before I should have seen it, but simultaneously it was love too. You know, it was love too.
Yeah. And so what was at what age did you realize like, okay, I'm growing up in the projects. This is, the level of violence around me is not normal. When did you like kind of like come to that realization?
That was like a 2-part right there. So when I was 13, I went to visit my uncle in North Carolina, right? My grandma and I went out there for like Christmas, and they had this house, man, and I had never been in a house, like, and so I go in there and we're in this house and I'm walking around and there's a bunch of food in there, and it's like you could have snacks all the time and everything.
Right.
And so we was there for like a week and we flew back in. I remember me and my grandma getting out the cab and walking over to our apartment, and she's like, well, back in the hood. And that's when it was like, I looked at him like, damn, like, this is horrible. Like, this isn't like that. But I'll say that when I started realizing the violence wasn't normal, honestly, I didn't start realizing my violence was not normal until I was probably 23 fighting my case.
Right.
That's when I realized it. It was a time where the lady, when she was, because I'm going pro se and representing myself, and I'm looking at the lady, and she's crying like on this stand about the bullets going by her head and stuff. And I sat there and in my mind, I'm thinking, why are you tripping? Like, because you was in the middle of bullets going by. But I didn't realize I went back to my cell that day, like, hold on, this ain't normal. That's not normal for everybody else like it is to me. So that's when I realized that it was very abnormal the way I grew up.
How'd you feel in that moment when you realized like this isn't normal? Like, other people don't view this the same way that I view it.
Man, it felt like it was painful. I think I felt something I haven't felt in years. I felt again, and it was just like this deep just piece of like darkness and hurt, that I felt at that moment, because I realized like, dang, there's a lot of more stuff that I did to people that wasn't normal.
I want to peel that back a little bit. When was your first experience with a gun or seeing bullets?
First experience with a gun, I think I was like 13 years old. I was 13 and a couple of my partners they had guns and everything. And we went to the house and we was like kind of checking it out and everything, pulling it out of the looking at it, putting the bullets in it and everything, just playing around with it. The next time was like closer to that. That was the first time we shot it. We was out there running around in the streets and wanted to see what it was like. So we started shooting the banger and playing with it and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So just outside of like the apartments that you would live in? Or?
Yeah. So, yeah. So, okay. So there's a transition at this point, right? Because the esoteric projects, gang wise, they don't consider it the central district, but although it's like right there, like there's a street, it's not considered the central district. But I didn't start gang banging until I went to the CD. I had a friend that brought me up to the CD, and that's when I experienced like the guns and everything like that. And yes, terrorists, they had them, but we weren't. It was more sheltered with amongst the older dudes. The young cats didn't really get to see that and hold them and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Were the younger folks like looking at the older guys as role models and thinking like, yeah, I want to do that, whatever they're doing, and just kind of like modeled their behavior towards that?
Definitely. Like, so I always say this, I'm like, where people seen like killers, dope dealers, prostitutes, I seen like brothers, sisters, aunties, grandmas, that's what we seen. And that's why we, like you said, we implemented the things that they did because we're like, okay, this is the way that we have to be too, because this is what we see and we love them, they love us. And we just work, we work towards what they're doing.
Was there ever moments of peace though within that time where you ever like, you know what, maybe I could go a different route, or was there ever opportunities for you to kind of go a different path while you were growing up there in that environment?
Yeah, I say I'll answer that two parts too. The moments of peace was when I was with my grandma, I call her Nanny.
Yeah.
There would be times where I'll come home because it was only us. My grandma's the one that raised me, so she'll come in there and I don't know if I'd be sad or something, but she'll take me in the bathroom, like had like this little incense and turn the lights on, like do these little circle things. And I know it looks retarded now, but like as a kid at the moment, it was like so cool to me. You know what I mean? And it just showed that love that we have for each other because no matter what, we had each other, in those times. And then the time I did, and this is one of my biggest regrets, where I tell a lot of my young people I had the opportunity to change. Because you're gonna be faced with these forks in the road. You're gonna have you're gonna ultimately make a life-changing decision. It's either gonna be agreeable or disagreeable, right? And my grandma went to prison when I was 14, right?
Oh,
and so she ended up going to prison. And I ended up having to go stay with my mom for a little bit. Mind you, we didn't really have a relationship like that out in Federal Way. And so I went out there and I had been on IEP my whole, my entire life, pretty much since I was first grade, for behavior modification things. And I went to the school and they told me that I didn't have to have an IEP. They was going to take it. Mind you, my first day of school, I got a black bandana on my right side. And it's just a different culture though. And they're like, bro, you don't have to have the IEP and everything. They took my IEP off, so we're going to let you go to school, be straight and narrow, and give you a whole new chance.
Real quick, for those who don't know, what is an IEP?
Sorry, it's an individualized educational plan. It's for, you can have either for, if you're having difficulties with educational wise, like math, reading, or stuff, learning, or you can have it for behavior. I had a behavior because I used to just black out and snap and do crazy things. So we're in there and they're like, we're going to start you over and give you a fresh start, right? And my mind, I'm like, all right, let's see what's up with it. But I didn't truly believe in myself because the way I had came up and where I had come from, I didn't even know what a fresh start looked like.
Right.
So a week later, I'm jumping, me and a couple of dudes jumping some dude in front of the school. You know what I mean? Put it all back on me. And then my mind went to, F it now, bro. I'm going to start recruiting out here. And I messed up right there, man. So that was a moment that I could have changed and could have did something different. I squandered it.
You could have turned it down, but you turned it up in that moment.
Yes. Because I could have went to, because I could have did the college stuff. I could have, didn't have to go back to the neighborhood, do any of that stuff, but it was so deeply rooted in me and there was nobody to guide me through that process.
Did you have like mentors in that time that were trying to guide you in the right path and you were just kind of blowing them off?
I would say that there were moments where there were people that would come talk to me for a moment. You know what I mean? Like my guy, White King, the one that's building Africa Town right now. He used to come and be like, hey, bro, da-da-da. But we was so many of us, like he tried to be the big bro to everybody in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? So that was difficult. I had a big brother that was on Big Brothers Big Sisters program, but he ended up moving back to Texas. So like any of the people that did build a relationship, they ended up having to leave.
Oh, wow. So you didn't have that stability to help guide you throughout like the different stages of your life.
Yeah, nah. I was just crazy. I was just talking to Catchy, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, it's so crazy because I never had a mentor. The person I am now, I didn't get that. I didn't have that. There was never that until I went to prison. That's where I got all my mentors from.
Oh, interesting.
Gotcha.
So I want to talk a little bit about that, but before we get into that, I want to talk about your experience from high school and what happened after and leading up to that event that led you to go to prison. What was that experience for you like?
So it was about when I first got out there, 14 and a half into high school, I kind of just was disinterested and disengaged, which a lot of young people are, to these days, especially young people of color. And I was just like, this shit ain't really this for me. I'm just here to get some girls, you know what I mean? And popping with my homeboys. So I really wasn't going to school like that. You know what I mean? I'll show up, I'll leave, get expelled, whatever. And just all throughout high school, I ended up getting kicked out, continue to get kicked out, which eventually led me to have more time on my hands to do much of nothing. And at this point in time, it was like I had left my mom's. She had kind of kicked me out. I kind of left. And it was like a simultaneous thing, And so I just hit the streets. So now I'm living in the streets. I'm homeless, but I'm still coming to high school here and there. And so I'm in and out of the juvenile. I'm getting in trouble, over and over. I ended up going to juvenile prison. Along the way, I have a kid. I have a little girl. Ended up going to prison, right? Like 6 months she was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then the story, see, it's funny because when you say that up to this point in prison, there was a lot more that was in between that, bro. There was so much more. But what eventually led up to the one that everybody knows about was, I had got tired of school. I'm bored of school. I ended up going to juvenile prison. They wouldn't let me back into schools when I got out. So I got my GED. And at this point, I don't have nothing in life going. I got a daughter that I'm can't even provide or help. You know what I mean?
And how old were you at this point?
I was 18.
18
years old.
Wow,
yep.
man.
18. Yep. 18 years old, bro. And so I went to prison the first time for multiple robberies, trying to get some money to help my daughter.
Sure.
And got out and went back running and gunning. I tried to pimp for a little bit. I did that. I robbed, I scammed, I did it. I did a little bit of everything, bro. And what eventually led to the case that had me fighting a life sentence was I had acquired all these guns. I had a bunch of guns, was hitting licks, getting guns, getting money, and I got so deep in this cycle of nothingness at this point. I had quit my job to start hitting licks all the time.
Right.
And I got so deep in this cycle of nothingness, I wasn't able to see. I was like so far into that water, I couldn't see above it. And I had these people around me. I was dating this girl that used to be with my brother, you know what I mean? And that ended up being his relationship. I had these other dudes around me that really shouldn't have been around me, but I can't see. And I got all these guns around me. And what eventually happens, we end up going to a bar, my friend and I, my girlfriend at the time, and his girlfriend, and get into it with these dudes. And out in Tacoma, these dudes start going back and forth, and I'm pissy drunk, you know what I mean? I'm angry, we fight, I leave, and we come back and we just shoot the whole place up.
Damn.
Yeah, that's how drunk I was. I caught across the street. I wasn't even coherent enough to get away,
Right. Was it pretty common for you and like the people in your environment to react that way during altercations like that, like shooting places up, and that was just commonplace for you guys?
Yes. Every it's like this, man. Every action requires the same or more of a response, and that naturally, like, it's perceived that if we don't react in that manner, then we're suckers. You know what I mean?
You got punked, right?
You got punked. Yeah. You got
Right.
punked. So you're supposed to take it to the furthest extent. And that's when people talk about like who's the hardest guys in the hood, who's the toughest. It ain't really about who's the toughest. It's just who's going to take it to the furthest extent.
Right.
And I always prided myself on being the one who's willing to do that.
Did you feel like in that moment, if you remember, you did mention you were pretty drunk, but in that moment, were you kind of like, I'm not afraid of the consequences, or were you just not even thinking of the consequences?
It's crazy that you say that because I skipped over this small detail. So after the fight initially happened, so my co-defendant and I were shooting at two totally different groups. Like, but we didn't know that. That's how like out of sync we were, So like when we get into the fight, and I think he's still inside getting jumped. And so I go back in there, I'm fighting again. He's already out at the car with his girlfriend. But at that time, I'm in the club. Somebody had went down there and threatened him. So when I go back down there, I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm thinking about the guys we're fighting. And so I go in there, I'm like, bro, what are you about to do? Now, this is the moment we're talking about, right? This is that moment. And I say this because I know I try to drop jewels because I know some young people probably gonna hear this. Right. So this is a big thing. This is the last post that one of the posts went viral about. And I was like, bro, a split decision. It was like an emotional decision. It took the fight was maybe a minute. The shooting was 5 seconds, cost me almost 6 years of my life. You know what I mean? This moment, right? I'm at the car and I see him grab his gun and he starts walking towards the club. And so there's that thought. I'm like, I pick my gun. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, damn, it's about to go down.
Right.
And I can't say that I was like, I care about the consequences. I was just kind of like, fuck it, you know? And that's when it happened. I hopped out the car and walked towards and started shooting too, you know? Yeah. But it's those emotional decisions in those moments that could just ruin your life for one quick emotion. Right. You know, not thinking, you know?
So you wake up the next day, you're in a jail cell. What's going through your head at that moment?
I'm like, oh, excuse my language, man, but I'm like, man, I done messed up now but at the same time, and this is how crazy I was thinking. I'm laying there and I'm like, okay, let me look at my charges. I was only booked under a drive-by shooting in unlawful possession of a firearm. So I'm like, a drive-by shooting, I walked up. I didn't drive by and do nothing. You feel what I'm saying? But in my mind, I'm thinking about, this is me being naive as a youngster. I'm like, oh, back home in Seattle, I'm like, this happens all the time. They could probably give me 2 years or something. I'm gonna be out in a little bit. Then by Monday, I had 6 assault in the first degrees, drive-by in a unlawful possession of a firearm. 2 months later, I had 8 assault in the first degrees.
Oh, so they just kept
racking them up on me. And at that moment, I realized I had messed up, bro. I'm like, oh, shit. Like I might not get out of this. You know?
Yeah. And so through that like experience and through that process, you're in the jail cell, you're looking at the charges, all of a sudden you keep getting more charges. And so now you're in court at that point and you're in front of a judge and she's reading off the charges to you. How do you feel in that moment? You're like, oh, this is setting in. Do you think about like, it's not gonna be 2 years. It's gonna be way more than that.
I'm terrified, bro. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm terrified. My heart, like, I felt my heart drop. Like, like I felt that nervousness, like that. Oh my God, I was shaking. I remember not even feeling comfortable. Like, we'll be watching TV with other guys in the jail, and I remember people like, yeah, when I get out, I remember I couldn't feel comfortable saying when I get out because I didn't even know if I was gonna get out.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Damn. It was crazy.
Yeah. Did you experience like anxiety or like mental health issues that develop as a result of that while you were in prison?
Yes. I was having extreme memory loss at random moments. I was strong anxiety. I think that my blood pressure was rising. I used to have to go see the doc. You know, it was it was crazy. Even now, like it's triggering like how I was feeling. Like it was crazy. Like it was almost unreal. You know, it was almost unreal. But it was definitely that, man.
Yeah, man. And so how long did they give you? How long was your sentence?
I got sentenced to 7.5 years.
7.5.
Yep. I had to do 5 in like 7 months or something like that off that.
Man, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And this was in federal prison?
No, this was in state prison. Yeah.
What was your experience there? You mentioned that you met some mentors, but what other experiences did you have while you were there?
I mean, I think I got into like one fight. And that was because I was still young and prideful. Feeling myself, you know what I mean? You know, you're in there thinking like, you know, I'm that guy. There was times where it was sad, it was painful. You know, I was seeing, because when I went to Cowley Ridge, which is like, you know, like they called it like the baby gladiator school, you know what I mean? Because everybody from Walla Walla and Column Bay, the worst prisons out here, was coming here. So it was political, and it was something that I'm a loving person. Even at my worst, when I was in the streets, I'm always a loving person. And so like I wouldn't be able to sit next to some of my guys I was cool with in the jail because we can't even walk through each other's tables. You can start a riot, somebody can get stabbed. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing like Hispanics, I'm seeing white dudes that I was cool with. We can't even be cool, you know? And that was painful, you know? I had a few homeboys die on me, you know what I mean? While I was in there, you know, I was scared my grandma was gonna die while I was in there. So there was these down moments. There were some up ones, you know, there were some ones where I was like, you know, I was feeling good because I'm sober now. You know, I'm able to teach my daughter, and you know, my son was just born because he was born a month after I got locked up. Wow. So yeah, I'm able to be on the phone and talk to them and stuff. But yeah, it was a roller coaster, man. It was a roller coaster of emotion, man.
Yeah.
Was it racially divided in in the facility you were at?
Oh yeah, man. Look, it was so racially divided. Like, so you have the, we call it the Sorrells, the Sorrells, the Woodpile, which is the white boys, and the I forgot the other Hispanics. They don't bang though, but there's like Brown Pride more, and they would all sit right here. And then you had the blacks, and you had the some of the APIs. We would sit over here, right? And you had to, if you wanted to talk to anybody right there, either you guys had to meet in the middle of their room, or you guys had to bend around and walk around the whole thing. Like, so my cell was behind where the Sorrells and the white boys would sit. So I couldn't just go right straight to my cell. I had to walk all the way around. It's so serious. You can't even eat with each other. They had different workout parts, different yards. So one yard, only the white boys and the Hispanics can be in. This yard, only the blacks and the API could be in. It was extremely divided.
And that was also designated by the prison, right? Like they would force you guys to be in separate groups because otherwise you guys would start a riot with each other. Is that what I'm?
They don't really force you in the separate groups. You'll start a riot. They don't do that. But they don't do that. But what they will do though is when you come in, they ask you what gang you're in. Oh. That's what they will do. I'll say that. Okay. They'll say like, where you from? All right. Okay. They'll try to put you where your other gang members are or whatever. I see. So you can be more secure with them,
Right. Because they don't want to put you in danger and like cause other issues within the facility. Right?
Exactly. Now there are some cutthroat COs in there. It's not, there's some cutthroat COs in there that they'll put you in bad positions. Yeah. You know what I mean? On purpose.
And those are things that aren't really talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, a lot of people that aren't familiar with the prison, they think like, oh, people that work for prison, they're law-abiding citizens. Right. They're great, outstanding people, but they're not. A lot of the time, they're not, right? Or not always. Yeah. And I think that that's something that needs to, light needs to be shed on that because, people are not given that justice and not given the, like what they deserve, right? Yeah. Because everybody deserves to be respected no matter what situation they're in, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you something. I'm actually kind of curious, but I've seen like these YouTube videos about people like showing like meals that they've prepped while they're in jail. Well, did you ever get into that? Like,
did I? Yes. First of all, man, the jail and the prison food is disgusting, bro. Like, you know what I mean? So I think I was blessed to have a good support system, and so I think the last 2.5, that's probably 3 years, I didn't eat no prison food. Like I, made my own spreads. So you got the
spreads.
That's spreads. The wow. Yeah, you got the spreads. You got burritos. You got nachos. Some people know how to make the pizza. Like, you know what I mean? Look, all that stuff. Yeah, man. I'm still waiting for somebody else to come out and make a food truck with the stuff.
Spreads. What was your favorite one? Like, if you had to choose one.
I think that the one, so you got the Chinese sausages.
Yeah.
The little Chinese, so you get the Chinese sausage. Okay, you get the noodle, you get the Thai ramen, the Chinese sausage, the cheesy bean and rice. You could decide if you want to put the squeezed cheese on there or not. You get some brown sugar in that joint, a little bit of plum sauce if you want to do it really right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you mix that joint up and you got, we used to call it a Chinese bowl. You know what I mean? We call it a Chinese bowl. You feel me? Yeah. But it's really just a type of spread. But it was the bomb because it was like sweet and juicy, you know what I mean? And
had all that flavor.
Yeah, that flavor in that joint, boy. You'll be right, man. You'll be right.
That's cool, man. I want to focus more on the mentors. You touched on, having mentors and finding a lot of growth within the time that you were doing.
Yes.
What were some moments that stood out to you that you found with your mentors?
Man, it's crazy. Yeah, because I had different mentors at different levels. But I think that one big one was I was walking with this dude, man, and it's sad because he ended up going back. He had got clemency. Yeah. And clemency, he did so many times, had life, bro, and ended up having clemency and messed it up. Anyway, so we're walking outside, and there's this dude, he's so charismatic, kind of short, bald, kind of got a little stockiness to him, and I remember he could literally walk outside into the yard and bend the corner, and there's 10, 15 dudes just following behind him. Wow. You know what I mean? And he was just glowing, And so one day I was like, I pull over. I'm like, man, big bro, like, how did you do all this? You feel me? Built a nonprofit organization in prison, wrote books, all kinds of books in prison, built a successful organization in prison. Wow. You know what I mean? And he used to say, he showed me a notebook from when he got his life sentence talking about he was doing affirmations. He's like, I'm gonna get out, and it came true. Like he's a powerful individual, and I'm like, brother, how did you do this? Like, where did it start for you, man? And he was like, he said it all started when I finally got knowledge of self, and that was impactful for me because it was when I took my journey on the knowledge of self, learning out who I am at the core. You know what I mean, and what that meant, and that's where it really, without knowledge of self, I wouldn't be here where I am now. So that was one big piece of life for me. You know what I mean?
So what is the knowledge of self? Is it just understanding like your emotions and what your personal journey?
It's understanding self in a way, like spiritually, mentally, physically. It's being in tune with yourself. I know you heard like chakras and all this. It's just being knowing your culture, knowing your history, knowing your personal, how that ties into you and your being. Yeah. And once you know that, because you can't really make many intentional improvements in life without having that knowledge of self, because until then you're just going around like a bag in the wind, right? Because you have no intention. You don't know your purpose. Right. Everybody, the figuring out your purpose starts with figuring out yourself. Once you figure out yourself, you figure out your purpose. Wow. You know, and once I said in my book, the way I started figuring out, and I tell people, the way you figure out who you are is figure out who you were before the world got a part of your mind. You know, you know what I mean? I liked animals. I used to like I was loving, I was caring. Right. But the hood and the environment took me over so much that I lost that. But once I figured out who I was able to intentionally figure out what my purpose was, and that was to give back life and unlock the minds to get to where they need to get to in life and the potential. Wow. You know? Yeah.
How far into prison did you talk with him, and like when did you start going through that journey yourself?
I was I think I was like 9 months in the prison at that time.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? About 9 months in the prison. Mind you, I did 14 months in the county going through the trial stuff. And then so when I got to the prison, I had to go to up there, and then I had to move around. So about 9 months. And so the book that I started with, they channeled me going, well, it was really How to Hustle and Win. That was the first book I was reading in county about it. But I'll say the one that dove me in the thinking was the Prosperity Bible.
The Prosperity,
the Prosperity Bible, got the Think and Grow Rich and all that Napoleon Hills and all them.
Big book reader, man.
Yes, hey, come on, hey, you better quit playing. We got to start shooting books back and forth.
Let's do it, man. We were just talking books on the last podcast, talking about The Alchemist. I don't know if you've heard that one.
I was just telling you about. Yes, The Alchemist. Isn't it a beautiful book, bro?
It's beautiful.
I haven't read it honestly, but I guess I should, man.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to. Every time you read it, you're gonna get something new.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time.
That type of book.
Oh my God.
I'm looking forward after this one.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah, definitely, brother. Definitely.
No, but that's powerful. And so were you writing your book while you were doing your time, or was this after?
You know, if I answer that philosophically, I was. I was writing my book while I was doing my time, but no. I had the book came from the idea of, if I got a chance at my life back, I was gonna make a movie, a biopic, right? And sell to Netflix, which I'm trying to still figure out how to do. But I was like, so then when I got out, I was doing all these different things, and I'm like, man, it would be dope to have something physical, because I'm in these different rooms. Right. I need something physical. You know what I mean? Like, it's dope to tell people my story, but I want to give this to somebody and be like, here, check this out and learn from it. And then it's a way to impact people around the world, you know? And so then when I got out, I think I started writing it maybe a month on being out, and I released it 10 months later or something. It could have been released a lot faster, but I was going through different things in my life. Me and my kid's mom broke up, and had this new girlfriend that was toxic, and all this stuff was going on. Right. And so, it kind of went haywire, but yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, man. And I mean, writing a book, for a lot of people, I feel like there's so much thought, but for you, probably, you had this unique experience after, at such a young age that you just, like you said, you were kind of writing it while you were in there. You're probably already thinking about, I need to put this in there. I need to put this in there. What was your thinking process, though? Can you walk us through that?
As I was writing?
Yeah,
yeah. So I was sitting back, and I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna write this book, like, what is it? What's it gonna be about? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna tell you the truth. 99% of the time, nobody gives a fuck about you. Right. You know what I mean? I ain't big enough to do a biography. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I was like, how do I make it to where some people can learn, but I can still use my life lessons on it? So then I'm like, damn, all right. Well, what are the top things I felt like I learned while I was incarcerated? And so I mapped out these different things, like don't be ignorant, like how to kill the things that kill perseverance and things like that. So I started writing out these different things, these jewels, like being humble, because it's broken down to 3 different parts. It's the becoming, it's the living, and it's the being. Because each phase is different phases of when I was incarcerated. So as I'm going through that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need it. So I learned humble, but I wasn't humble right when because I got in that fight. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm like, man, let me put that towards the end. So I'm like, that was where I was like being this person. So then I'm like, all right, well, where was I at when my homeboys, I was sad because my homeboys felt like I wasn't in the group no more, in the circle. I got homies from the streets that didn't feel comfortable when I walked into a room. They didn't feel comfortable talking about some stuff that happened because they're like, he's on some square stuff now. And I was like, dang, at that time I was wrestling with myself. So I was in the living. I was still living. You know, and then I was like, okay, cool, that was dope. And I was like, but when did I come up with the vision though? Like the vision of who I wanted to become. And I was reading these books and trying to figure out where to go. Cause nobody, when you go in there, older people weren't talking to me at first because older people don't mess with young people in there because you're too wild. So I'm like, I was in my becoming phase, you know? And so that's how the different parts came. And then from there, I just started writing and just recapturing things and putting in there, okay, now what do I want somebody to pull from this? Let me add these questions at the end for them to reflect on it. You know, and get those reflection points. Yeah, and that's how it was like all the way up until the end. You know, it's just keep staying at it and learning and looking and reflecting on myself. So the book was really a self-reflection that was needed for me, you know, but it actually ended up helping a lot of people, you know, and actually helped me get in position. You know, a lot of that book got me in the doors I wasn't able to get into. I spoke in Germany. I did, Germany podcast. I was able to speak to a group of individuals in Germany, Southern Leadership Conference, India, you know, and things like that. And people hit me up from the Caribbeans and talk to me about different things like, oh yeah, it helped me out with this and stuff. So it was just beautiful, but it was really a self-reflection thing that was necessary.
Was that your goal as soon as you left prison, or was this something that developed after creating the book?
It was something developed after. Like when I left, it was like I said, it was like, what do I do with this? You know what I mean? Let me put this in there. You know what I mean? Let me put something together to be able to have, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How was that feeling though, when you stepped out of prison and you're like, you know, after spending almost 6 years in there, like you come out a new person, you have a new perspective on life, and you regretted the decisions that led you to that place. Like what is, like, in your thought process, the next step that you should take to build that new life coming out of it?
So when I was in there, right, I was like, what I'm going to make sure I do is I'm going to do everything opposite of what I've done the other times I've been locked up, right? So what I used to do in the beginning was when I go to juvenile prison, I'd be like, all right, I'm going straight to the hood. Buying a ball, I'm going straight to the hood, see the humps, flex a little bit. You know what I mean? So this time I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm about to stay my butt at home, and I'm finna start hitting up some of these resources that I had got when I was in there. You know what I mean? I'm going to do this. I'm not going to get drunk. You know what I mean? I'm going to be sober-minded. I'm going to start creating the structure that I had in here out there. So I just did every single thing opposite, you know? But one thing that I will say that was a blow to me was I figured that when I got out, I was going to be able to come to the hood and talk to the homies and be like, look, this is what we should be on, and this is woo-woo, based off of my credibility from the past. You know what I mean? I was going to flip that and use it for positivity, and it wasn't like that.
Oh, they didn't want to listen to you? Or?
Yeah, they did. It was like I one of my closest partners, and one that actually brought me onto the block, we got into it. Like, you know what I mean? We used to always kind of get into it. I was like this big brother, little brother type thing.
Yeah.
But this was serious. It was like, you know, he was like, bro, this is what I do. You've been gone. You ain't been getting shot at with us. You ain't been seeing your homies die every week with us. You've been in there. You feel what I'm saying? And it broke my heart because I thought I was going to come out and it's going to be like, come on, guys, let's go. I'm saving everybody. You know what I mean? And it wasn't, bro. And it wasn't, you know, and that was real painful for me.
That's interesting because they looked at you as like almost you came from a point of privilege not having seen that.
Yeah.
But you've experienced the punishment of those actions. And I think that's just really powerful because a lot of people, you would think that you would be able to convince them like you did, and you're like, here's the punishment, here's like the after effect of what happened, and the fact that they just didn't want to listen to you and keep doing that, what they're doing is almost, it speaks to the fact that the environment that they're in blinds them, like you said, like you were under the water of just seeing everything going on, and you had that tunnel vision almost of that environment. That's really interesting, man.
That's dope you even said. I never looked at it from that perspective either.
Yeah.
That's that perspective offer right there. I like that. That's dope. Yeah, it's true, bro. And it was so painful. And I think the big part of it too is because now I can see the transition. A lot of my guy Nip said something. He said, hold hold on, my guy RP Nip. He said, I like to think I gave the hood a different purpose because I ain't never seen these type of niggas disencouraged. You know, as I see my homeboys now and I see what they're doing. Like I see their stories, I see their, and maybe it's a narcissistic type thing, but I like to feel like, man, I play a piece in that because I got people that tapped in with me now after seeing the consistency, right? They're like, hey, bro, I just want to let you know I'm seeing you, fam, and I appreciate you. You know what I mean? I love what you're doing.
That's
dope.
It
be hidden. Like nobody, they won't tell nobody that, but I see it, and I see the difference in behaviors and certain things changing by them. I think I gave them permission to be good. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like, if I can come, I was one of the worst of the worst. Not saying I was the hardest of the time. I was just willing to go to the furthest extent all the time.
Sure.
And for them to see that, like I posted a status like, man, I'm really a nerd, bro. I love reading. You know what I mean? They're like, oh shit, okay, I kind of like
cool to
do
do
like,
that.
you know what I mean? You know, and that's what it is. And what I learned from that is that, and this is for a lot of people that want to kind of guide anybody out of a certain type of lifestyle, is you have to show first. Like you have to be consistent in your mission first and really, really, really show anyone that this is what it looks like. And I'm going to keep doing this regardless. And as you do that, people that are supposed to are going to grab a hold of that and do the same.
Man, this is so crazy because we just interviewed Marshall. You ran into him really quick on the way here, but I see a lot of like similarities in your story and his, two completely different lives, but both talking about, you know, following this journey, sticking with their passion, but running into people that are giving them pushback.
Yeah.
But you're so passionate about your journey and you're so focused on your end goal that you're not letting these people get in the way. Yeah. And as you move further, they actually start joining your cause, man. That's such a powerful, you know, I think that that's something that a lot of people can really take into their journey and just continue to push through. You're going to feel pushback. You're going to feel challenged, but those are the times that you grow the most. Those are the times that you really learn the most. And that's so powerful that you say that.
Why are you not a motivational speaker, bro?
Man, I don't know. I don't know. Let's go. Let's do it.
For real, bro. Like the energy, that power, you feel that?
Oh,
like,
yeah. That's The Alchemist, bro. I need to read more books, man.
Yes, bro. Yes.
I'm just honored to be in the presence of people with great stories, man. And thank you. No, that's amazing. But I want to touch on one of the biggest ways that you're giving back right now is through your nonprofit, Prose Potential, man. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no doubt, man. So Prose Potential, right? This was something that it was officially started in December. What a lot of people don't know is the backstory of Prose, right? Is I was in jail when I first thought of the concept of mentoring young people. I didn't even know it was happening. It just came authentically. There was like young people coming in there. I was 22, I was young myself, but they were like 18, 19, 20, 21. And they're coming in here, they're getting like 2 years or a year or 9 months or 6 months or something. And they're just happy, they're just having fun. Like this isn't serious to them. And me, I'm sitting there facing a life sentence. Yeah. And it hurt me because I don't want them to go through this. So what I started doing was I started taking like honey buns and like meat sticks and noodles. And I would pay the young people to like, don't get in the fight this week. And I'll make you a spread. You know what I mean? Or read this book. Yeah, read this book and tell me what you learned about it, bro. And I'll make you a dessert. You know, and so next thing I know, I had these young individuals. They were kind of like my caseload in a way. And I was like, they're big bro. And when I went to prison, it was the same way. I just had more resources. So I was like, develop a release plan, young bro. You develop a release plan, I'll buy that stuff for your sister for her birthday because I know you don't have it. You know what I mean? Or I'll do this and that. So I had young people develop release plans and I'm calling the resources out there and getting them connected with that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so when I was released, I did some work with the Urban League of Seattle for a minute. Then that position closed, and I ended up in a construction job that I hated because I wasn't good at it at all. And then I started doing stuff with the YMCA, and I would go into these rooms, and people would naturally like come towards us. You know, it's the energy. You know, you know, we all understand that. Yeah. And they're like, bro, you're dope. The kids, the young people automatically flock to you everywhere you go. Yeah. And so people started being like, bro, you're powerful. Create something, do something, make this something, bro. Oh, wow. And that's when I started Prose Potential, meaning the young people. I became a lawyer in less than 14 months, and I had never been to law school. Wow. You feel what I'm saying? So I had never been to law school, and I said that. That's how I had to represent myself in court to become pro se. I had to become a lawyer. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so then I'm like, well, shit, if I could do that, what else can I do? And if that's the case, then if I could do that, how many more powerful minds that have not been tapped, right, or untapped? How much untapped potential is there out there? So I was like, I want them to tap into their potential before they have to go pro se. Right. You know? And so that's where Prose Potential came. And what we do is we help young individuals growing up in like low income communities or impacted by the system. We help them to become empowered to tap into that to that potential that they have in South King County. But we do some stuff in Seattle too.
Wow, man. That's powerful, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, because a lot of people, when they're in tough situations, you know, you were like literally doing time. So you were in a tough situation yourself, but that says a lot about your heart because even though you were in a tough spot, you were focused on giving back to others.
Right.
That's crazy, man. And I find that like really refreshing because I feel like right now we live in a world where a lot of people are kind of selfish, kind of thinking about themselves a lot, especially when they're in a tough spot. You know, they're like, what can the world give me? Instead, you shifted it. You were like, what can I give the world? What can I give to the next generation so that they're not in this same spot? And man, I think that's so powerful and that needs to be recognized.
No, I appreciate that.
And I also want to touch on too, man, you know, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but you know, I grew up in Eastern Washington, really small town, a lot of first generation immigrants there. And, you know, with that comes low income. With that comes single parent households are, you know, there's a lot, myself included.
Yeah.
And growing up, I saw a lot of that, man. I saw a lot of my friends joining gangs. I saw a lot of people going, you know, turning towards violence as the first way to express themselves. And just the lack of mentors, man. I grew up without a father. You know, I didn't have that father figure in my household. And a lot of my friends had that too. And I see the need for that, man. I see the need for mentors in the next generation. And I find it so commendable. And so that's why I really find, you know, your organization, Prose Potential, so powerful and so needed in the community. How can someone who wants to start an organization like this outside of the Seattle metropolitan area do that? What kind of advice do you have for that?
I think that, well, let me say this. The way that you start an organization like that is just get the vision first, right? Of course, I don't want to sound cliche, but like really create the vision. The vision's going to get bigger later. But get the vision, like what is the why behind it, what you want to bring out into fruition, like what do you want to give to the world? Make sure your heart's in the right place. So those are the fundamentals before even doing any of this, because the back end of this stuff is extremely difficult. You know what I mean? But then after you got the vision, you know your heart's in the right place and you know where you want to take it, you know what I mean? You got your mission going, you know what's the place is. Then all you do right there is, man, you Google how to set it up. You know what I mean? Set it up. But I suggest, it's my suggestion, I suggest people start doing things first in the community. Like start working with other organizations first. You know, not that someone has to work for them, but like volunteering and doing those type of things and learning the setup. Because had I not have been with the why initially, I wouldn't understand how to do case management. I wouldn't understand how to do like structured mentoring or how to have a nonprofit organization. And get friends. Now I have a lot of my friends own nonprofit organizations. So I'm able to tap in with them and be like, man, how do I do this or how do I do that? They're my mentors for that space.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Can you share more about what your organization does specifically? Like what are some specific engagements?
Yes, definitely. So one of the things we do mentoring. We're fundamentally a mentoring organization, right? Which means we'll tap in with the young men or the young ladies and we'll just we'll sit them down and just have these conversations with them. You're like, okay, so what are some things that you're going through? What are some things that you want out of life? Most of the time they don't even know. Right. So we just talk to them. Like my big thing to get a young person to see the vision is I'd be like, man, well, let me talk about this, bro. Say 10 years from now, you know, you say you're 24, 25, man. What does it look like to feel good? Like, you know, what does that look like when you're feeling, they're like, I guess I got a stable job, you know, I got a nice car and da-da-da. So we're bringing those things out. So I'm like, okay, so to get that, let's travel back now. You know what I mean? And this is how we get the goals out. Cause I don't like the formal way of saying like, what's this goal? What's that goal? Let's talk and have a conversation and I'm gonna guide you to that. So we do those type of things. We sit there, we have these conversations with them, build out goals with them. And then we just connect. Okay, so I got young people, I got 3 young people this week. I got to go get the jobs from those conversations. We take them down there, introduce them to different employers, help them build their resumes and cover letters and things like that, or depending on where they are in their journey, and connect them with their employment, help them get their ID, help them get their license, you know, be there to talk to them, tap in with their, I call their empowerment circle. You have to have a circle around. Who is it? I don't care if it's the big homie. You know what I mean? I got to know who it is that you're connected to, just in case. You know, if you ever stop talking to me, for whatever reason, as young people do, I need to be able to tap into somebody else and also keep everybody else up with your progress so we can keep supporting you. So we're fundamentally a mentoring program, but we're also rolling out our SOAR, Seek Opportunities and Rise, which is a workforce development, a healing focused workforce development program.
Oh, cool.
And so we're healing center, Ketchy and I are both healing center and engagement practitioners. It's a behavioral health model focused on working with young people of color and healing them from their trauma, healing focused, but it's asset driven. Trauma informed care is more deficit based. Like what's wrong with you? This is what's right with you. So we do that because if you're not healing from those things and diving deep into yourself, then there's no way we can have you performing correctly in the career or business world, right? But simultaneously, we're running that class through the Roots of Success. Is we have their curriculum, we utilize the curriculum and teach it because we're facilitators of that as well. And they're leaving with cover letters, they're leaving with resumes, they leave with 3 to 6 college credits. We pay them a $500 stipend at the end.
Oh wow!
And, yeah, pay them a $500 stipend at the end. They're learning all the mock interviews, all the different things to have you ready for the work world. Then we connect you to the employment. That's and awesome. Another thing they get with that is they get to get a credit union bank, and if they complete the program, they get a financial advisor for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And so are you guys volunteer based? Like do you connect the participants with mentors as volunteers, or is it kind of hired based? How does that work?
We've just been going into that structure. So God willing, we have a couple of grants coming that's going to allow us to hire.
Right.
But we're always accepting volunteers. Yeah. Always accepting volunteers. But we are going to hire some people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, they can find us on we got our Instagram, Prose Potential. Yeah. We can look at prosepotential.org is another thing. You could tap in with my DeVonte Parson, our Prose Potential's on there. Prose Potential's on Facebook.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And right now you guys are serving South King County?
Yes, mainly? South King County mainly at the moment. Until we get some more funding opportunities for Seattle, then we'll be able to spread that way. Because I got to give back to the town, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's so difficult, with the gentrification, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's not a lot of the gang issues going on in Seattle aren't from Seattle lights. Like, it's really more Kent and Federal Way, and they're coming to Seattle.
Right.
And they're doing things and then going back. You know what I mean? Right. So, it's a little more difficult in that manner, though. Yeah. But we're working on it. We're figuring it out.
That's awesome, man. And I want to touch on the book. I know we're running low on time here, but Prose, you mentioned that this has your experiences, but do you want to explain a little bit more about what people can find in the book?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Prose, the art of becoming more. Some of the things they'll find is we have things in there that's talking about like the how to kill procrastination, like killing procrastination because it's preventing you from being able to make moves and do things that are going to help you manifest or bring forth the things you want, right? So I was like, ignorance. I think I said ignorance, laziness, and fear. And I break down the definitions of them. Mm-hmm. And then I say, like, how do you get away from it? Laziness? One of the big things that I learned, and it's all from experiences in prison. One thing I learned about laziness is how to defeat laziness. It's like, as soon as I come up with an idea, I'll do something to make a step towards it immediately. Mm-hmm. I don't give myself time to sit back and think on it too much. I'll just go for it, Ignorance. I talk about the ignorance. Ignorance is really just not having the knowledge of something, which is there's no reason why with all this digital age, why we shouldn't have the knowledge of something. Right. So I'm like, okay, anytime I want to know about something, then I'll automatically look it up. I'll find a way to look it up or do something to fulfill that knowledge so I can go make stuff happen. And then the fear piece, I got this thing when I was in, this is one of the parts, I call it the F it thing, right? I call it F it or thug it out. When I was in the streets, I had the same thing. I'd be like, man, we're going to go pull a drill on something, or we're going to go pull a drill like a shooting, or we're going to go run up on some cats and fight or whatever. Like, I would channel my mind and I'd be like, man, okay, let's go. You know what I mean? And I'll just be on it. What I did was I flipped that down. So if I feel something like this causing fear, I was like, okay, let's go. You know what I mean? I just dive into it. And that all kills the procrastination. Now you're able to be more successful and get more things done and accomplish the goals that you say you had. That's why it's called Prose, the art of becoming more, because that's the point. Everything in this book is based on how to become more, how to tap into that potential, how to become the best version of yourself. Yeah. So you can give to the world.
Absolutely. What a powerful message, man. And where can people find this?
Amazon.com. You go on Prose, Amazon.com, got it. Prose, the art of becoming more. You can tap in with me. I do signatures. I sign them and send them off as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, definitely. We got a few more left in the trunk. It's been crazy because I got another book I'm working on at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll share that with you guys soon when it come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
and I love the quote on the back here. It says, "I got to life up, but in a good way."
Yeah. Oh, let me give you guys that real quick. Let me tell you guys that real fast, bro. I know we're running out of time, but so it's so funny. I used to when I was in prison, right? I walk around the yard. I'd be walking around the yard. I talk about it a little bit in the book, and I'd be energetic, man. I'd be like, man, oh man, I can't wait, man. When I get out, I'm gonna life up, man. I'm gonna life up when I get out. And I used to say it. I used to say it like affirmations. And I remember one time it's okay. I was like, hey, what is you saying? And I'm like, I'm gonna fuck life up. And then Cats is like, that's the bad thing. Like, you don't realize. And I'm like, nah, but in a good way. Like, you don't realize, because we don't realize, we think we fuck our lives up. You're not fucking life up. Life's fucking you up. You feel me? When you're falling in circumstances, situations, you're getting punched on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're only fucking life up when you're intentionally and purposely moving throughout life and making shit happen the way you want, like the alchemist. That's when you're fucking life up. Yep. You know, that's the good way to do it.
That's powerful, man. Well, thank you so much, DeVonte. Really appreciate you taking the time. Really appreciate you bringing the book. We're definitely going to read it and get back to you on the synopsis on it, man. But thank you for your time. And for everybody who's tapping in, man, if you want to get the book, we got the link in bio. You want to tap in with DeVonte and his nonprofit org, Prose Potential. Links in the bio. If this is your first time tapping in with Untapped Potential, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, follow us on all social media, and catch us next time. Peace.
Peace.